get to that. That's the point of today. But what I wanted to start with, and I'm sort of, this has to be 20 minutes, so I'm going to be sort of quite quick. First a bit of an introduction, and then a bit about my job and what sort of my team and I do, and then a couple sort of things that I've learned along the way. But what I wanted to start with was I was sort of given this brief of, these guys want to know, what they'll be doing in 5 years, what career paths look like. And this sort of idea that the job that you'll have in 5 years doesn't exist, has been true for quite a while now. I think, even when I was at school, I was getting told that. I think back then it was like the job you'll have in 20 years doesn't exist yet. But like quite honestly, the job that you have in 5 years doesn't exist yet. And I always thought that was a little bit scary. I don't think it is scary, and I don't think for you guys it should be scary. And I don't want to sort of stand up here and say that in a way of, that the industry is changing really quick. So if there's sort of one thing that you take out of this and you ignore the 7 things at the end that I leave you with, it would be that essentially this is true. What you're going to be doing in 5 years doesn't exist yet. And so probably the most important thing that you can do is work out what you're really passionate about, what you love, what you have energy for, and point yourself in that direction and just go for it. Because if you sort of go, oh, I want to be a, digital strategy manager in 5 years, like they're not going to exist in 5 years. So just find out what you're passionate about and go for it. And I promise you the road will just sort of lay out in front of you, because nobody else knows what you're going to be doing in 5 years either. So that's how I wanted to start. This is as true for me as it is for you. The job that I'll have in 5 years doesn't exist yet. Pretty much all of the jobs that I'm about to go through didn't exist until I had them. This is as true for me, and I'll get to the end. At the very end, I'm going to do a bit of what I will be doing in 5 years to give you guys a bit of an idea. What I'll start with, though, is jumping back sort of 10 years to sort of when I started. I'm actually technically an industrial designer. I trained in industrial design. I'm a qualified welder, green sand foundry work, and plastics technology, which is completely useless and has nothing to do with advertising. But when I left uni, I went to this job at this place called B-Site. My sort of general job title there was General Hack. And what B-Site was a mobile startup. We created, these guys were actually miles ahead of their time. They created SMS project management for property developers. So basically, a property developer would get up in the morning and go, oh, I need like 15 cubic meters of concrete poured today at this work site. And they'd punch into their computer and SMS would go out to like 20 different concrete contractors. And it was basically a race for who could SMS back and say, yeah, cool, I'll do that. They didn't fail, they're actually still around, they've just pivoted a couple times. And what I did there was pretty much anything that they wanted me to do. One of the things I really loved about B-Site and the next place I was at was, I guess, the energy that you get out of being at a startup. And if you ever sort of get the opportunity, I know most people are in sort of big organisations here, and I'm not saying sort of quit those tomorrow, but if you ever get the opportunity to either work in or work with startups, definitely do it, because the energy that is in there and the passion that people have and just the general sort of get shit done vibe is absolutely brilliant, and it's something you can learn a lot from. So moving on, I then sort of got into the agency world through a fairly roundabout way, basically because I could weld. I got hired at Sputnik Agency, which I worked out about a year or two later was an advertising agency, and I was sort of shocked at myself that I worked in advertising at that point. I was like, oh, Jesus. But it was really fun. Again, it had that amazing startup energy. And we had, in the end, some pretty awesome clients. We had Adidas, Cadbury, JJ's, Crumpler. We did a lot of work for sort of Berry and some other sort of drinks brands. So we did some really fun work. And I was sort of roughly a digital creative there, but I sort of say I did ideas, I did design. I learned to code a lot of different languages there. I was welding, I was writing, but answering the phone. We didn't have a receptionist. Everybody answered the phone, and everybody in that place was equal, and that's another absolutely brilliant thing. And I think it's something that is worth taking through your career is to try and ignore hierarchy as much as possible. It's really not important. Even in the biggest agency in the world, or the biggest media company in the world, hierarchy is completely unimportant. Everybody is pretty much equal, especially in sort of the ideas world that we work in. So, it doesn't matter who you are, speak up. I think one of the main things that we sort of, one of our mottos at Sputnik was that we would just fake it till we make it. We just pretended we were a big agency, we pretended we did lots of really cool work, we went to speak to really important people, we're like, yeah, totally, we can do that. And you know, there's a lot that you can get out of that. I then decided if I was going to work in advertising, I'll go and work for like one of those really big, ugly ones. So I ended up at M&C Saatchi, and this is all in Melbourne, by the way, I probably should have backed that up. This is all in Melbourne, so I went to M&C Saatchi in Melbourne. I went over there as a digital creative. I then became the technical director there. And so M&C, for those that don't know, is sort of one of the big old school creative agencies. Their logo is big and black and bold. And in Melbourne, we pretty much just had ANZ as a client. So I just did a lot of work for the bank. I made a lot of banner ads for mortgages. It was terribly exciting. And there wasn't a massive digital department there, but while I was there, digital sort of became more and more important. And so the one thing that I definitely got out of M&C was just the idea of sort of looking for an opportunity. And this is where I sort of just started to point myself in the direction of doing something I loved and just sort of went for it. You know, I sort of went, look, there's these big creative agencies and they literally have no idea what to do with the internet. They have no idea what to do with digital. And there's a bunch of really talented people, all these really creative people who are brilliant at making television ads or print ads or whatever, but they have no idea what to do with digital. And so I sort of saw that as a bit of an opportunity. And I went to MD in Melbourne and said, hey, can I like do this thing where I just work with the creative teams to make them get digital? And he's like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. You can totally do that. What do you want your job title to be? And I'm like, I want it to be technical director. And he's like, okay, I guess so, that sounds cool. So that was my job title. And you know, literally I walked in there and I was just a kid who smashed out banners. And I sort of went, there's an opportunity here that big ideas applied to sort of the digital world could be a lot better. So I started doing that. That was quite rad. I then got a call one day from a guy called Sean Brannigan, who was executive creative director of an agency called NetX. And he was up in Sydney, and he said, do you want to come and work for me? And I said, no, I really don't like Sydney. And so randomly enough, I was coming up that weekend anyway, so I came up and it was a beautiful weekend, and I sort of went, oh, maybe I can deal with this thing. So I ended up at NetX, and this is a big ugly slide. So I ended up at NetX. NetX was a little digital agency that had just been bought by Clemenger, and then moved into, from this beautiful little office, little boutique office in Balmain, it was moved into this big ugly, and anyone who's ever been out there, this big ugly blue agency on the hill in St Leonard's that is Clemenger. And so I went in there as sort of digital creative director of NetX, and I was sort of tasked with this job of taking NetX, which was a digital agency, and sort of mushing that together with Clemenger Proximity, which was a direct agency, and Clemenger BBDO. I quickly worked out why they got someone from Melbourne to do this, because I didn't realise that they all just hated each other pretty much, and nobody wanted to work together. So that was a tough job for a while, but at the same time, you know, it was a classic case of just biting off way more than I can chew. I sort of went up there and everyone's like, yeah, right, you're here to do this, and I'm like, shit, am I? Cool. I'm either going to do this and it'll be really fun and I'll learn a lot out of it and I'll probably have to work really hard, or I'll completely fail and I'll move back to Melbourne and tell everybody that I just missed Melbourne. But I did it, you know, we did a lot of work. You know, I think probably, you know, the moment that I walked into a Vodafone pitch, and I think I would have been like 24 or 25, and I walked into the Vodafone pitch with the rest of the management team, and sort of that was a proper like, holy shit, I really am faking this now. But you know, that's where I sort of went, oh, actually, you know, this can work and this will be fun, and we sort of managed to make that thing happen. And then so the last probably year and a half that I was at Clems, I was just properly sort of the creative director. And for people who've never worked with creative directors, I think a lot of people think that creative directors are the people that come up with all the crazy ideas and do everything. They're not. They're the creatives. The creatives come up with all the ideas. The creative director sits there and says no. Hundreds and hundreds of times. And you go, oh, that one's good, let's do that. Unless it's a junior team, in which case if they have a really good idea, you say no, and then you take the idea and you give it to one of the senior teams and tell them to do it. That's actually how it works as well. So that was Clems. And really another case of sort of, I guess, biting off more than I could chew, another case of going, hey, I think this is how an agency needs to work at the moment. I think this is how integration should work, so let's just sort of point in that direction and go for it. So I did that for a while, and then one day I got a phone call from a man with very big collars named Toby, and he said, I want you to come and work at Mediacom. And so Mediacom obviously is a media agency, and I didn't really have a good history with media agencies. Most of them didn't like me. I didn't like most of them. I thought they were just sort of spreadsheet ninjas. Actually, probably spreadsheet monkeys back then. I've since changed my view, obviously, working with DAS. Spreadsheet monkeys with colourful jeans. And so, yeah, Toby sort of got me on board to come across to Mediacom under the promise that it wouldn't just be a media agency, that it was about it being a comms agency. And so there I am, head of innovation and technology, and what that means is sort of roughly head of digital, maker of things and creator of boxes. So anybody at Mediacom would know that generally I come up with products and I make a little box, it's just in Photoshop, and put a name on it, and then clients think they're buying something, not just some sort of ephemeral idea. So I'll go through what I'm going to do rather than trying to explain it. I was going to get some more participation. Das, what do I do?
Just make boxes and sell it really expensively to clients. You do it well.
Cool. Anyone else from Mediacom want to guess what I do? Christine? You sit like 2 meters away from me. You still have no idea what I do. Okay, I'm going to. This is as much for everyone from Mediacom as it is for all the other guys here. A couple of things that are specifically my sort of team, the innovation team, does. Chris is here somewhere. Chris? Chris didn't come. Chris is too busy. So some of the stuff that Chris does, building digital things for brands, so stuff like YouTube channels, stuff like Facebook competitions and promo stuff there. Manage community, so we look after EA Games, Australia and Japan, look after KFC, we look after a couple Danone brands down in Melbourne, a couple of the beers down in Melbourne, we look after Dell, and I'm missing somebody that I can't remember. So I think all up we look after about 2 million sort of fans on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or whatever. We make stuff famous, that's a big part, and I guess that's where I sort of go, this is where media and creative and all this stuff doesn't necessarily matter, and even sort of, whether you're media owner side or agency side, sort of all those lines are blurring. So a big job that we do a lot is actually we're creating a lot of content within the agency, and my team do a lot of getting it out there and making it famous, and I think we counted up at the end of last year the YouTube views that we got, and it was like 4.2 million YouTube views for the content that we created for our clients. So we do that, and we do strategic insights, which are boring and look like that, but I promise they're very, very good. And probably, I guess the most important thing about what I do there and what the team does is that we're always sort of moving forward, we're always having to develop new things, and that sort of goes back to this idea of, point yourself in the right direction and just have a bit of faith in it. I thought that, hang on, we do one more thing. We build products, so we're also building a lot of technology. So sort of building IP for the agency. Ask This, which is a mobile sort of question app. We're also building a lot of NFC stuff at the moment. Building another little events thing for client, or for us, but to sell on to clients. So, actually building products for an agency, and that's again where what we're doing is starting to be quite different, I guess, from what 5 years ago was happening. I thought that probably wasn't a brilliant example of exactly what I do, so I then thought I would set an alarm every hour from the moment I got up and take a photo for a day to give you a bit of an idea of actually what I do. So 6:30 in the morning I have coffee and I read Wired. I don't just read Wired, I read lots of things. 7:30 in the morning, and this was quite good because this was quite a typical day with very little alcohol as well. So 7:30, I get in quite early because I like getting in early. Trust me, you'll get to a point where you're old and you'll be fine with getting in early. I got in the morning. This time this was a conference call with some guys in New York that are creating some really cool software called Percolate. So I do a lot of stuff with sort of startups and looking for how we can apply technology for our clients. 8:30 I had a team, so this is the digital leadership team meeting. So Izzy looks after social, Alexa looks after production, JB looks after media, Lawrence looks after clients, and then on the phone we had Stu, who's search, and Annie, who is Melbourne. So you can see they're all tired and they're really pissed off that I put in leadership meetings at 8:30 in the morning. At 9:30 I actually did some work. This is me putting together a presentation that I'm going to do tomorrow. Who's noticed a problem with this photo? It's 10 past 10, yes. I had to hit snooze on the alarm a couple of times. 10:30 I had a meeting with Elena, who's our new head of, no, not head, God, if you would kill me, who's our new people and culture person. She's brilliant, she was very smiley when I took that. At 11:30 I was talking to FJ, who's a business development sort of manager. I was actually talking to her at this point because I had a team meeting in a couple of hours and I had no idea what to do. At 12:30 I went and had lunch. The second thing that you can take out of this is go and have lunch. People eat at their desks and you don't achieve anything. Don't do it. Go and have lunch. So every day I go and have lunch and I read for 45 minutes. Please do it. 1:30 I had that team meeting. The eagle eyes in the room will see that the title of that team meeting was probably the best team meeting of the week. It's also the only team meeting of the week. At 2:30 I was in a cab going across the bridge to go to Telstra to look at their new IPTV technology stuff, so that was quite fun. At 4:30 I returned to find Izzy, who heads up social, dressed up in the Mr. Pringles outfit. So it is fun. At 5:30 I was playing Angry Birds. And this was for work, I promise. I had to explain game theory to one of our clients, so I actually had to go through Angry Birds until I got the blue ones that you can explode, because I had to explain the sort of getting of skill. At 6:30, this is Alexa and Nibbles. At 6:30 everyone sort of just starts going a little bit crazy, so I usually go home and generally have a beer. So that's what I do in a day. What will I be doing in 5 years? I think this is really important that all of you actually sort of know, here's what I really want to be doing in 5 years. And in 5 years I can sort of tell you what I hope I'm doing, and that's still working with brands. I really love working with brands. I really love working with media. I really love working sort of with that interface between consumers and people and technology and brands. I think more and more agencies and media companies and all of you guys will be working in the space of creating products for our clients, and technology for our clients, more than just creating ads. We're not just going to keep on putting shit in front of people and hoping they'll buy it. We're going to be creating things that they interact with. So that's roughly what I hope I'm doing in 5 years. I plan on doing it at MediaCom because they keep on letting me do this stuff, so it's quite nice of them. So until they kick me out of there, I'll be doing it there as well. The final part that I wanted to do, because I realised I got to the end of this and I hadn't really said terribly much useful, except for think about what you're passionate about and eat lunch. So I went through this again and went, what are the 7 things that I think I've probably learned in the last 10 years that perhaps everybody won't tell you, like that maybe your parents won't tell you. And the first one, and I learned this when I was studying industrial design, a guy called Charles Eames, who's probably one of the greatest designers of the 20th century, said this: never delegate understanding. This is as true for any industry ever as our one. You need to understand how things work. I'm around like coding and stuff like that a lot, and I still code just sort of in my spare time because it's terribly important that I understand how it works. You need to understand how stuff works when you're doing it. So don't ever delegate the understanding of that. Number 2, be childlike. This is something that many people say. Paul Smith says it very well. He says, be childlike, which isn't being childish. Being childish is being a dickhead, but being childlike is looking at stuff with, fresh eyes and like you're looking at it for the first time. So that's something that I think everybody should do more of. If you don't like something, change it. This goes back to sort of a lot of that hierarchy stuff. Just because you guys are in the first couple of years of your careers doesn't mean that you can't look at something that's wrong and go, why don't we change that and actually make a difference? Please speak up. Because a lot of the people, your bosses, don't know what's wrong because they spend too much time at lunch. Don't tell them I said that. Oh, this is being videoed. Number 4, don't waste your life on blogs. That's not saying don't read blogs. It's fine to read blogs, it's fine to read Mumbrella and BNT and Onion. Just don't waste your life on it. I've literally, when I worked in creative agencies, I literally just had creatives who became so dejected and left the industry because they read Campaign Brief and they looked at the comments on there. Like, just don't waste your time on there. It's rubbish. It's good for the news. It's good to know what the industry's doing. Don't get too much into it. 5, understand the business of business. If you don't understand how the company that you work for makes money, why they make money, and what the important parts of that are, it's very hard for you to know how you're adding value. So try where you can, ask people, you know, the business of business, how you make money. Number 6, steal. I realise now, after I'd sent this through actually, that I probably should have clarified a little bit more. Don't like steal shit from the office, but steal ideas. You know, we're in a creative industry. Everyone here is in a creative industry. And there's no such thing as a new idea. Brilliant artists are just very good at convincing people that all of their ideas are original. Nobody's ideas are original, so steal them and make them better. And then number 7 is write. And I think this is really important because, you know, from the very start of this, I've been saying, understand what you're passionate about, understand what you care about and where you want to go. And I think writing's a massive part of that. What wasn't in my photos thing, I spend 15 minutes every morning, first thing when I sit down writing. A lot of the time that writing goes nowhere. Like, it's just for the purpose of doing it, for the purpose of thinking and having time to yourself to think. You know, spend some time every day if you can writing. It's one of those beneficial things you can do, and it's what will help you sort of work out where you want to go. So that's the 7 things. You can take 1 or 2 or 3 of them. You're crazy if you take all 7 of them. And probably number 8, the most important, eat lunch. Thank you very much.